I'm on a quest to uncover and share the most impactful and thought-provoking stories that are often overlooked or ignored by mainstream media. Join me on this journey, and together we can explore the hidden narratives that shape our world. Have you ever pondered why modern-day Africa seems so different from what you did imagine its ancient past to be like? What if the narrative of a continent waiting to be civilized is a carefully constructed lie? Prepare to have your perceptions shattered. Today, we're going back in time, not to a primitive past, but to a golden age you were never taught about. And then, we'll fast forward to now, to confront a truth so unsettling, it will make you question everything. For centuries, a dominant narrative has painted Africa as a continent devoid of history, innovation, and complex societies before the arrival of European powers. In the year 1400, African empires were flourishing, boasting universities that dwarfed their European counterparts, trade networks that spanned continents, and technological advancements that were truly groundbreaking. This isn't a fairy tale. This is history. And the contrast is not just stark. It's a profound challenge to our understanding of progress, power, and the true cost of forgotten legacies. Now let's rewind the clock to 1400. While Europe was casting off the shackles of the Dark Ages, Africa was basking in the glow of the Renaissance. Forget everything you think you know about Africa being a primitive landmass. Imagine sprawling metropolises teeming with life, intellectual hubs that rivaled ancient Greece, and vast empires that stretched as far as the eye could see. This wasn't just a corner of the world. It was the beating heart of global trade, culture, and knowledge. Let's start with Timbuktu. Now you might be thinking, what's so special about a desert town? Well, hold on to your hats, because Timbuktu was no ordinary settlement. It was a gateway to the Sahara, a nexus of trade routes that connected North Africa with sub-Saharan Africa. By 1400, it was a bustling metropolis, home to some of the largest universities in the known world. We're talking about Sankara University, Jingaber University, and the University of Sidi, institutions that drew scholars from across the globe. Yes, you heard that right, from Asia, the Middle East, and even Europe. That's even more mind-boggling. Timbuktu boasted more books than Paris. We're talking about over 70,000 handwritten manuscripts. Some estimates say closer to 1 million. That's a lot of knowledge, and the topics covered were anything but limited. Astronomy, mathematics, medicine, law, theology, everything's. While you named it, they were studying it. It wasn't just about religious texts. It was a melting pot of ideas. But wait, there's more. The real magic lay in the people. Timbuktu attracted brilliant minds from all corners of the known world. Think about it. At a time when Europe was stumbling out of the Dark Ages, Africa was hosting a global community of scholars, engaging in debates that shaped the course of human thought. Now that's something to ponder. And the secret source behind this golden era, you guessed it, the almighty cash. The Mali Empire, which ruled this part of Africa, was sitting on a gold mine, quite literally. I mean, have you heard of Mansa Musa? He was the emperor of Mali in the 14th century. And he was so wealthy that historians estimate him to be the richest person who ever lived. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 was legendary. He lavished gold on all passers-by. He practically showered the streets of Cairo with gold for a whole decade. Can you imagine the economic impact of that? And it wasn't just gold. Africa had a monopoly on salt too. These trade networks weren't just conduits for gold and salt. They were arteries of cultural exchange, connecting West Africa with North Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Europe. African merchants weren't just traders. They were sophisticated financiers, managing complex financial systems, negotiating deals that would put modern-day CEOs to shame. So what does this tell you? Africa wasn't just a passive recipient of trade. It was an active participant shaping the global economy. Now, let's talk about innovations. Pre-colonial Africa wasn't just a land of ancient wisdom. It was also a hotbed of invention. The Noack civilization, for example, was way ahead of its time. When it comes to iron smelting, their advanced techniques date back to as early as 500 BC, long before many parts of Europe were even thinking about working with metal. And then there's Great Zimbabwe, a marvel of African architecture that was built around the year 1100 AD. It was a stone city. Yes, a city made of stone, and it had no mortar, none. And yet, the massive walls and intricate structures stood the test of time. This wasn't just a city. It was a testament to human ingenuity. It housed a population of tens of thousands, not a small village, but a thriving urban center. From agricultural innovations that fed large populations to sophisticated textile production and metalworking, African societies were not only surviving but thriving. They weren't waiting for Europe to bring them out of the dark. They were already basking in the light of progress. They had complex legal systems, sophisticated political structures, and a deep understanding of their environment. This wasn't a continent waiting to be discovered. It was a continent thriving, innovating, and contributing immensely to the global tapestry of human civilization. So how did we go from this golden era to the often misunderstood and misrepresented Africa of today? This is where the timeline accelerates and things take a dark turn. The arrival of European powers marked a catastrophic turning point. First, the transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly removed millions of Africa's strongest and brightest. It wasn't just a loss of labor. It was a brain drain, a cultural hemorrhage that left deep unhealing wounds. Then came the scramble for Africa in the late 19th century. European nations carved up the continent as if it were a piece of cake. They disregarded existing ethnic, linguistic, and cultural boundaries. It was a blatant disregard for human geography. Arbitrary borders were drawn, traditional governance structures were dismantled, local economies were reoriented, and educational systems were replaced. The legacy of disruption post-colonial challenges, after decades of independence movements, brought political freedom, but the structural damage inflicted by centuries of exploitation remained. The arbitrary borders led to internal conflicts. Economies designed for extraction struggled to diversify. Educational systems, still largely based on colonial models, often failed to address local needs. The narrative of Africa as a continent of poverty, disease, and conflict became entrenched, overshadowing its rich past and vibrant present. This isn't to say Africa hasn't made progress. There are incredible stories of resilience, innovation, and growth across the continent. But the fundamental question remains: what if Africa had been allowed to continue its natural trajectory unhindered by external forces? What if the wealth, knowledge, and human capital that were stolen had been allowed to flourish? This reality, while complex and diverse, is undeniably shaped by a history that has been deliberately obscured. So here's the provocative question: who has an interest in hiding this history? Why are we not taught about the grandeur of African empires, the intellectual prowess of Timbuktu, or the economic might of Mansa Musa? Why is the narrative so consistently focused on poverty, conflict, and a need for external intervention? Perhaps the truth about Africa's past undermines the very foundations of certain historical narratives. Perhaps acknowledging this past challenges the notion of a singular path to progress and development. Perhaps a truly empowered and historically aware Africa is a threat to existing power structures. This isn't just history. It's a call to action. It's a demand for a more accurate, inclusive, and honest understanding of our shared human story. It's about recognizing the resilience, ingenuity, and profound contributions of a continent that has been systematically undervalued and misrepresented. The unsettling truth is out there. It's time we all faced it. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support means everything to us. And remember, ignorance feeds the problem. Knowledge empowers the solution. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop seeking the truth.